Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the MetroPlan meeting. Commissioner Greaves was not able to join us this morning, so I'm filling in for her. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Today is February the 14th, 2024. And I'd like to ask everyone if they do have any type of electronic device, please put them on silence so that we can not be interrupted. We will have two opportunities to have public comments. One beginning of the meeting for consent agenda, and then also at the end of the meeting for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone attending today's meeting wishes to make public comments? Please fill out the speaker cards that'll be available at the reception desk. Fill out the card and then please give it to Lisa Smith. And that way she can also call those individuals. And if anyone's online that wishes to speak, please raise your hand digitally as appropriate. This time I'd like to ask the Mayor of Apopka, Mayor Nelson, to lead us in a Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Mayor.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor. We did have the MPOAC meeting on January the 25th in Orlando. Commissioner Reby was the chair of the statewide organization, and she will be reporting on that later today. They did have quite a bit of conversation regarding the carbon reduction program and greenhouse gas emissions. At this point, I would like to ask Mike Wilson to give us a monthly safety moment. Michael?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Our safety moment for this month is to feature the Move Over Law, and that's what FDOT is focusing on this month. You're all familiar with that law, that it's addressed to emergency vehicles and utility vehicles, et cetera. But starting this year, it now applies to all disabled vehicles that are displaying warning lights or flares, or if there are just people present around the vehicle on the shoulder. So regardless of who is out there next to a disabled vehicle, it applies on all roads, not just limited access highways. It does not still currently apply to pedestrians or bicyclists traveling along the edge of the roadway, but it's still a good idea if you can make a lane change to give them some space as well. So a reminder that the required actions for the Move Over Law are that you are to vacate that lane if you're in the lane closest to the disabled vehicle. And if you cannot do that, to reduce your speed to at least 20 miles per hour below the posted speed. A point I'd like to make is that the earlier you can vacate that lane, the earlier the drivers behind you can do so as well. And so clearing that whole space out helps everybody out. And that concludes my safety moment for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. We did have MPO Alliance meeting on February the 9th. I'd like to ask Commissioner Moore, as the chair of that committee, to report to us, please. Commissioner?
Okay. All right. Good morning. The Central Florida MPO Alliance met on February 9th, and we had only two action items: the election of the new Alliance officers and adoption of our October 13th, 2024 meeting minutes. The Alliance officers for 2024 are Commissioner Doug Shields from the Lake Sumter MPO. The chairperson will be Mayor Chris Clowman from the River to Sea TPO, and also Mayor of DeLand. Vice chairperson and council member Yvonne Minnis from the Space Coast TPO is this year's secretary. We received 4 presentations, which included the first, a status update on the FDOT truck parking project. Secondly, a presentation kicking off our regional project prioritization process. Third, an update on the federal greenhouse gas performance measures and targets. And lastly, we heard a roundtable discussion on Vision Zero action planning, safe streets and roads for all activities in each respective MPO and TPO service areas. And that was very interesting to see how the other regions were handling on the Vision Zero agenda. The next Alliance meeting is April 12th, and it's here at MetroPlan Orlando. And this concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner. As was stated earlier, on January 25th, we did have a MPOAC meeting. Commissioner Reeve was the chair. Commissioner, would you have an update for us?
Yes, good morning. I do. So the MPOAC Executive Committee meeting met on January 17th and then again on January 25th. Actually, we met in Tallahassee with the Secretary of FDOT and the Assistant Secretary, Secretary Holland. The MPOAC Governing Board met on the January 25th at the Florida Hotel. We approved the October 25th, 26th meeting minutes. We received the report from the chair. We received an executive director report that included the MPOAC budget report, discussion of the legislative impacts of the MPOAC and MPOs. And I wanted to take a moment, just very briefly, Mr. Hutman's very aware, and our vice chair is also aware. We have, there has been some legislation that really jeopardizes the MPOs statewide and as a state function. We've been watching very closely. Some of that language has changed a little bit for the better, but not quite where we want to be and where we feel comfortable. When you think of the MPOs, I kind of talk about it as in home rule. We know what's important to our region, and that's why it's very important that we protect our MPOs. We have 27 of them across the state, and clearly someone in the Panhandle is different from us. It's different from Miami-Dade. So this is something we're going to be monitoring very, very closely, continue to advocate, and if needed, allow our members to know what's going on so that you can help us with our friendly senators and state reps from across the state of Florida. Just returning from Washington, D.C. at a NARC meeting. This is very valuable. MPOs are essential, although legally there is a language where they really can't remove us and abolish us, but it doesn't mean that that can't happen. And so we just want to make the board aware. Mr. Hutman, I'm sure will be sending additional information out. We heard agency reports from DOT, Florida Highway, and Federal Highway, excuse me. And we also held elected officers for 2024. I will continue to serve as chair of the state MPOAC. Escambia County Commissioner Bender from the Florida Alabama TPO was elected to serve as vice chair, but since then, Governor DeSantis has appointed him as the new supervisor of elections for Escambia County. So he is no longer a county commissioner and will no longer be our vice chair, which then moves up our Palm Beach Gardens Mayor Chelsea Reed. She was elected at large for the executive committee. Our next MPOAC meeting will be held April 25th, 2024. We're lucky. All of our meetings are held here in Orlando at the Florida Hotel. You guys are always welcome. We have a large crowd, usually between 60 and 80 people meet with us and collaborate from across the state. So very excited because a lot happens there. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. This time move to the Executive Director.
Thank you, Vice Chair DeLaury and board members. Good morning. I want to give the board a bit of an update on our apportionment plans. Those were the plans that the board approved back in September, and we submitted to the state for their review. We've sent out the necessary amendment to the interlocal agreement. You all should have received that, and I ask for your cooperation in getting that on your agendas just as quickly as you can so that we get that executed and new members can sit and vote on the MetroPlan board. But in the meantime, I have asked Mayor Blackwell of the city of St. Cloud to start attending the meetings, and they can certainly do that. They can participate. We simply will not have them making motions, and they will not be allowed to vote until it's finalized. But this morning, the city of St. Cloud is represented by Councilmember Gilbert, who is their designated alternate. So he's joining us just to hear what we're doing and to learn as we have discussions. So we want to welcome him. Board alternates, we're expecting Commissioner Scott here representing Orange County in place of Commissioner Bonilla. We also have Jack Adkins here representing the DOT in place of Secretary Tyler. And we have Jordan Smith here representing the Municipal Advisory Committee in place of Mayor Dowless. I want to make board members aware also of a recent new requirement for us, and that is a target for greenhouse gas emissions. It appears right now that we have until September 25th as an MPO to adopt a target. Although depending on DOT, some action by DOT, that could come sooner. So you'll be hearing more about this at future meetings, but for sure, it will be on the board agenda in September, if not sooner. We submitted our written responses to DOT for our joint certification that we do annually a while back, and that's been reviewed, and we had our interview with them yesterday. They'll be finalizing that and preparing the final report and doing a presentation to the board, a very brief presentation to the board, either at our March or May board meeting to close that process out. Then I want to congratulate Osceola County on the National Science Foundation award that they received, $160 million. So congratulations to them, as well as to the city of Orlando on a $606,000 grant to study several corridors throughout the city. Virginia and I have spent a good amount of time monitoring this legislative session. I think it's been busier, at least for me, than any previous one has been. But she'll be discussing that in her report later on the agenda. Then I want to thank DOT for working with us on the safety summit on their strategic safety plan that was held on January 31st. I want to also thank the board members that were able to make it to that. I did not because of the legislative session and needing to be on call for that, but also to the city of Orlando for providing the venue for that. It was much appreciated. And then I want to congratulate Taylor Laurent on our staff. Taylor, we received word just last week that Taylor was selected by the AMPO, now that's the National Association of MPOs, by the AMPO Board of Directors to serve on the technical committee for that nationwide group. So it's a big assignment for her, and I'm sure she's going to do a great job at it. You have your supplemental folders in front of you. I want to just highlight the items that are there. They include an announcement for a Wekiva Parkway community celebration that will be this Saturday, February 24th. There's an email message in there from the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure regarding the greenhouse gas emissions. There's a District 5 Office of Safety newsletter, and then there's a one-page sheet in there for elected officials with information on Vision Zero and how you can better prepare yourselves to respond to questions that may come up your way. Mr. Chair, that completes my announcements.
Thank you, Gary. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to FDOT's report. Mr. Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair and board members. Have a few things we'd like to touch base with you all on and give a few reports on. Mr. Hubman covered some of them, and one of them is the joint certification. MetroPlan continues to excel. They do an excellent job. We had our joint certification meeting, I believe, yesterday, and as Mr. Hubman said, the final report will be coming out, but we certainly appreciate the partnership with MetroPlan and enjoy working with them. And they, as I said, continue to do an excellent job. I think later this morning, we're going to get a report on the Moving Florida Forward team, the I-4 portion. And we're lucky to have 3 of the 4. Well, we have 2 now. A third one should be coming. I think she's actually hung up on I-4. So we have Catalina Chacon, Tracy Hood, and Katie Sherrard, and they are part of our Corridors program team. There's leading the Moving Florida Forward I-4 portion, and that team is headed up by Keith Slater, who is up in central office right now. Next thing I'd like to talk about is a little bit of an update on truck parking. We don't have much yet. As you all know by now, we did win a $180 million infra grant, and we're still coordinating with FHWA. You know, in my mind, I thought they'd come down with a giant check like you get at a golf tournament and we'd be moving forward, but that's not how it works. So there's still a lot of coordination, and the FHWA continues to work with us. Probably be about 6 months. The only thing we really do know at this point is that in some way, some form or fashion, it will accelerate the schedules, but we're trying to put all that together as of yet. The next item that I want to talk about is, again, Mr. Hubman touched on it, the strategic plan effort. And we did hold the workshop January 31st. Appreciate everyone that participated in that. There are going to be a couple more workshops. We're developing a plan that brings together the 9 counties with the DOT. The 3 workshops, the next one will be February 26th. And it will be Lake, Sumter, Marion counties. And then on February 27th will be Brevard, Volusia, and Flagler. And we did have over 120 people participate in the first workshop. And then typically how they're going to be set up, the morning sessions will invite law enforcement, schools, advocacy groups to come together to give ideas. The afternoon sessions will be elected officials, engineers, public works directors, to do the same thing, to give us some ideas. So that's exciting. We're looking forward to seeing what comes out of that. And then lastly, again, just wanted to kind of mention the Wekiva Parkway Community Celebration that we're going to bring together. It is on Saturday, February 24th, I guess a week and a half or so. From 8 to 12, it's going to be at the Neighborhood Lakes Trailhead out of 46A in Sorrento. And it's going to have walking tours, bike tours, some music booths, basically just a celebration. And we are going to have some guest speakers. And I believe our PIO team is beginning to get that together and reach out to people for speaking opportunities and availability. And again, celebration of the 25-mile parkway that's now completed, and it completes our 100+ mile beltway around metropolitan Orlando, Central Florida area. And, we were able to preserve 3,400 acres of wildlife areas. So exciting project. We did have the ribbon cutting a couple of weeks ago. Commissioner Constantine was there to speak and appreciated that. And very exciting. And Mr. Vice Chairman, that is DOT report.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Any comments or questions? Mayor?
Do you mind elaborating perhaps a little bit more? You talked about the $180 million FWA grant. I take from what you said that we haven't received any money yet. Can you elaborate on kind of how the money will ultimately flow?
It comes, we coordinate with FHWA, so it'll come through FHWA. And then, once we finish it, from what I'm hearing, it's about a 6-month process to get everything worked out. But once it comes into us, into our work program, then we're going to address the needs of the 4 of the 5 truck sites. Those are the Seminole County site, which we're buying right away for. And as soon as we get freed up, we're ready to go to construction on. Then you have the Volusia County sites, one on the eastbound, one on the westbound, kind of close between in that 92 area. We have the Osceola County site that we are currently working with CFX on. And then we have the Orange County site. So that one was not included, but we're working with Turnpike. We have a joint project there with them. But so once the money gets to us, we will program it in the areas where there's shortfalls right now. And then we'll be able to put those schedules together to move them forward.
So the design has already been done for the selected sites.
No, sir. We've through PD&E on all the sites, and then the others are in various phases. I believe the design has been completed on the Seminole County site. The others are getting ready to begin those phases.
And when do we anticipate that the construction will be completed, when the project is done?
They'll be phased in. I mean, right now, none of them are funded for construction. So, I mean, obviously we're further ahead with Seminole County. So that will be the first one. And, whenever the money gets kind of laid out, we'll be ready to get that together, but that's when we'll get those schedules together. I mean, I anticipate them being, most of our phases are about 2 years apart. Now, the good thing is we've already started right away with Seminole County and pretty far along with that. Volusia County, we'll only be dealing with the city of Port Orange and city of Daytona Beach for right away. We're working with CFX right now with one property owner for the Osceola County piece. So the right-of-way phases won't take as long as typical. It's usually a 2-year phase and then so you have design that's 2-year phase, right-of-way it's 2-year phase, construction's a 2-year phase. So that's, the right-of-way can be accelerated and then, that's, the others will phase in however the money, when we get a better idea on the money. We should have more details on it in the next 3 or 4 months, I would think.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. At this time, we'll go back to Mr. Hutman for the agenda review.
Mr. Chair, we knew the roll call and,
I'm gonna get there.
okay. All right, the only change that I have to the agenda comes under consent agenda item 9B. And the financial report that you will be approving through action is just for November. The December report is not in there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
This time we'll go to roll call and confirmation of quorum. Lisa?
Arrington.
Here.
Bates.
Here.
Gilbert for Blackwell.
Here.
Scott for Bonilla.
Here.
Castano.
Here.
Constantine.
Here.
Gomez Cordero.
Here.
Delari.
Here.
Demings.
Here.
Dyer.
Here.
Smith for Dallas. Good. Grieve. Janer.
Here.
Moore.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Ortiz.
Here.
Uribe.
Present.
Wilson.
Here.
Woodruff.
Here.
Commissioner Delari, that concludes the roll call, and we do have a quorum physically present.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go to committee reports, Municipal Advisory Committee.
Morning, Vice Chair, board members. The Municipal Advisory Committee met last week on February 8th. We approved our December meeting minutes. We then recommended approval on the following items: FDOT safety performance measure targets, an MTP amendment related to the I-4 Moving Forward initiative, amendments to the Transportation Improvement Plan, and the new urban area boundary smoothing process. The MAC received 4 presentations. First was the Unified Planning Work Program. Then we heard about the 2050 MTP kickoff. We also received a status update on the Zero Action Plan. And finally, we heard about the changes to MetroPlan's Orlando's Tracking the Trends. The MAC meets next on March 7th, and this concludes my report.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none, we'll go to the Community Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Good morning, Vice Chair Delari, members of the board. I'm Dr. Dan Stevens, CAC Chair for 2024, and I'm happy to be attending my first board meeting in that capacity. Community Advisory Committee met back on January 24th and approved re-support of the FDOT safety performance measure targets. Committee also voted to recommend approval to the 2020 adjusted urban area boundary. Committee voted to recommend approval to both the MTP and TIP amendments dealing with the Moving Florida Forward initiative. Members expressed concerns about the initiative, including the need for more public-friendly outreach to explain the construction program and address typical motorist concerns such as the amount of traffic disruption to expect during the project. Questions were also raised about the express lanes in the area and how the project will accommodate possible plans for rail projects. Members previewed the kickoff of the 2050 MTP and learned about ways to be involved in the development of that plan. They heard updates on the Vision Zero Central Florida, on MetroPlan Orlando's Tracking the Trends, and on the development of the UPWP. The annual Florida Sunshine Law refresher was also presented. The next CAC meeting will be on February 28th. I invite you all to enjoy and join us, and you can hear our diverse perspectives on from the community on all these matters. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, we'll go to Technical Advisory Committee.
Good morning, board members. I'm Joshua DeVries, Chair of the Technical Advisory Committee. TAC met 3 weeks ago on January 29th. Like the other advisory committees, TAC met in person with a physical forum present. Our action items, all of which were unanimously approved and recommended for approval, including our December 1st meeting minutes, FDOT safety performance measure targets, MTP amendment for moving Florida forward, amendments to the Transportation Improvement Program and urban area boundary smoothing. Like the other advisory committees, we received presentations on the Florida Sunshine Laws, the 2050 MTP kickoff, and Regional Vision Zero Action Plan update. There were also two TAC-only presentations that included the Unified Planning Work Program, UPWP, and Tracking the Trends updates. Our next TAC meeting is February 23rd at 10 a.m., and that concludes my report.
Any comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to the Transportation System Management Operation Advisory Committee.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair and board members. I'm Brian Sanders. I'm the chairman of the TISMO committee. The TISMO committee met on January 26th, and the following items were approved. The minutes for the December 1st, 2023 TISMO meeting, staff's request to support the FDOT safety performance measure targets, modify and amend the 2045 MTP to include projects related to the Moving Florida Forward initiative, amend the fiscal year 24 to 28 TIP to conclude items in your agenda today, support of the new urban boundary following the boundary smoothing process. We also had 3 presentations. The first one was by Mr. Frank Martz from the city of Altamont Springs, where he gave a presentation on the city's innovation lab and Cranes Ride, which is an autonomous shuttle. Mr. Alex Trauger from MetroPlan Orlando provided a preview of the upcoming Unified Planning Work Program for fiscal year 25 and 26. And Mr. Slade Downs from MetroPlan presented on the revamped Tracking the Trends program website. The next TISMO meeting will be held on February 23rd, 2024 at 8:30 a.m. And Mr. Vice Chair, that concludes my report.
Any comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to public comments and action items. Comments on action items can be made in 2 ways: in person at today's meeting, or you can do it via Zoom virtually by raising your hand feature on the public comments as indicated. If you'd like to speak, please complete the electronic speaker card at the desk that we have. Hard copies are also able to be filled out and handed to our staff. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to address the board and should state his or her name and address for the record. If comments do not pertain to the action items on the agenda, your comments would be asked to be at the end of the meeting for general public. Lisa, do we have any general comment cards?
I have not received any.
Virtue like to speak to us?
Mr. Vice Chair, we have no hands raised on the virtual side.
Okay, thank you. This time we'll go to consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, Janer. Second more.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye,
Aye.
opposed, like sign. Motion passes unanimously. Now we'll go to action items. First item on the agenda is FDOT Moving Forward Initiative and approval of the amendment to the 2045 MetroPlan Transportation Plan. This time is a roll call vote. We'll hear from staff first.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Catalina Chacon with the Florida Department of Transportation here. Here to provide an update on what we've been doing, our new team. As Jack mentioned, some of our members are here with us today. So I'm gonna tell you about our Corridors Program Office, project overview and the map. What are we overseeing? Status of our projects, what we've been doing in terms of industry and stakeholder outreach, our plan for procurement, and then construction, engineering, and inspection procurement as well. So we have a new team. When Governor Ron DeSantis announced the Moving Florida Forward initiative, there was this team that was formed. We report straight to central office. Our team is called Corridors Program Office, and our director is Keith Slater. As Jack mentioned, he is in Tallahassee right now. He comes from District 1. He was the director of operations in District 1. We have an admin assistant, Cheryl Willets. We want to hire a communications program manager. This person is going to be a single point of contact with our stakeholders, with the community, with the construction contractors, once we have them on board, as well as MetroPlan and cities and municipalities. We have Tracy Hood with us here today. He is our project controls program manager. He will be in charge of budget, schedules, utilities, risk assessments, and whatever else Katie and I are not in charge of. He comes from District 7 in Tampa. He was the consultant project management engineer in Tampa. He has tons of years of experience, 40 years in the industry doing this. He's only 43 years old. He started doing this when he was 3 years old. But a lot of knowledge from Tracy. And then we have Katie Sherrard here with us. She is going to be the construction program manager. She has a lot of experience in construction as well as design. She comes from us from District 1. She was the interstate corridors engineer. District 1 has an office only for interstate projects, so she oversaw all phases from planning to construction. She also helped during last year's, or I guess 2 years ago, Sanibel repairs after Hurricane Ian. And then myself, Catalina Chacon, I will be overseeing the pre-construction phase. That means design in essence and right away and PD&E. And I am from District 5. We have, during current legislative session, we will have additional staff that we want to add to the team, DOT staff to support Tracy, Katie, and myself. So we're going to have staff under us to help us with this program. We always mention Carrie. So right now, as you can see, there's only 4 of us, but we're trying to get all the help that we can. So Carrie Nelson has been helping Katie and us, and she's from District 1. So I'll tell you a little bit of why this team was put together. The reason for our team is to make sure we streamline the delivery and the management of the projects that we're overseeing. We want to have consistency between the projects. And as you'll see in my next slide, we are overlapping district boundaries. So that is the main reason too. We want to be a single point of contact with all the districts that are overlapping in these projects, communicate and coordinate with those districts. So one of those districts is District 5. And we have been having monthly meetings with District 5 leadership. They're making sure that they're supporting what we're doing, that they are, when we're making decisions, that everybody is on board with those decisions, but we have a single point of contact. So as I mentioned, these are the 3 projects that we are overseeing. There are 20 projects that were announced in the Moving Florida Forward initiative, but only these 3 projects are going to be managed by our office. So we have project number 12 that matches the project number in the Moving Florida Forward initiative. That project is the I-4 reconstruction in Osceola County. So reconstructing I-4 from Champions Gate to Osceola Parkway. Project 13 is the Poinciana Parkway Extension Connector. And that project is in jurisdiction of the Turnpike Office. So this is where we are overlapping 3 districts. Project 12 jurisdictionally is in the D5 geographical region. And then project 16 is the I-4 from west of US 27 to Champions Gate. That is in District 1. So we're overlapping these 3 districts here. This is an overall map that shows you what is it that we're going to be overseeing. So all the way from west of US 27 on the top left corner to the bottom right corner near the 536 interchange in Orlando. You'll see in here that there's 3 letters, PDB2, PDB1. I'll go later on, but that is a new procurement method that it's available to us. It's a new tool that we have to us. And this method will help us get to the start of the construction phase much faster than other methods. It was approved during last legislative session, so we'll definitely want to take advantage of this new tool in our toolbox to get to construction faster. But I'll tell you later on what we're thinking in terms of procurement. In terms of project scope, what are we envisioning and doing? We are not, probably some of you have seen this graphic before. We are building what we said we were going to build. So in Osceola County, we're building 2 express lanes in each direction. We're providing a rail corridor in the median of I-4, and then we're reconstructing the general use lanes. we are in Orange County, what we're proposing to do is right now in the westbound direction, we're building a single westbound express lane. And in the eastbound direction, we also need to connect to the I-4 Ultimate project where the express lanes start today. So we know that in order for this project to be successful, the main goal is to relieve congestion, and we need to connect those pieces. So we're in the south in Osceola County, we need to connect to I-4 Ultimate in Orange County. So we're proposing the typical section that you see in the bottom to connect those two projects. Let me go back real quick. Part of rail corridor right there that you see in Osceola County, we are having monthly coordination meetings with Brightline and the Sunshine Corridor to make sure that if there are any ways that we can minimize throwaway and rework in the future, that we're coordinating those efforts to see what can be done to minimize those things. And Tracy Hood, that is one of his tasks that falls under him. He is the point of contact for Brightline from our team. Project status, very similar both in Osceola and Polk County, but we have our environmental document. We will do a design reevaluation for our NEPA document, very standard process. We're changing the typical section, so we're gonna be moving forward with that. In terms of funding, the majority of the funding is in place in Osceola County. The only part that we're missing is the Poinciana Parkway Extension connector. We have currently funds for design and right-of-way, which allow us to start the design right now. And then we're missing the construction funds. But in current legislative session right now, we're asking for those construction funds so we can be whole. LRTP amendment, which is what we're here today, to amend the LRTP, and then we will follow by STIP amendments. We're currently acquiring right-of-way for both Osceola and Polk County. In terms of project status, there's a lot of activities that are going concurrently, so we're trying to move as fast as possible. So a lot of, we're working with FHWA on the project requirements that are gonna be needed. We need their support and their blessing on certain documents. We're working on our traffic documentation with FHWA and central office, our NEPA clearances. Industry forum, we are going to have an industry forum where we're gonna go to industry and let them know what our plan for procurement is, and that is going to be in March. We're working with our finance office. Tracy's leading those efforts. So in terms of what do we need, what approvals do we need? Finalizing our concept design, as well as coordinating with stakeholders and industry. So in terms of industry and stakeholder outreach, we've been holding meetings. It says 30 plus, but right now, as of today, is probably 40 plus. So what we've been doing is we released a video a few months back where we were letting industry know we're coming so they can start thinking about forming teams. What we want to be successful in this project, we need participation and competition with contractors to make sure that they're giving us a good value for our project. So we've been having meetings with potential joint venture teams, so contractors, consultant industry, as well as vendors, what technology they can bring to this project, because we want to, it's an opportunity for us to try any new tools that are available to streamline the whole process for this. So based on this meetings that we've been having, based on coordination with the Florida Transportation Builders Association, we are in lessons learned from FDOT. We are pivoting from the 2 phases annual contracts that you saw on my early screen to have multiple contracts, and that is just to encourage the participation and the competition. But we've been doing a lot of outreach, meeting with Osceola County, with MetroPlan, and all these organizations that we need their support to make sure we're successful. So as I mentioned, in terms of construction contracts, we are pivoting from two contracts to multiple contracts. And the range from those multiple contracts is going to be from 200 to 650 million. And that is for that participation, that competition. We are planning our industry forum, and we're gonna have more news about that coming here in March. In terms of the construction engineering and inspection, CEI, we are working on the contract for that one. The vision for this is CEI is basically the staff that's going to oversee the construction activities, making sure that they're being built by standards and there's being consistency. So we want one single contract that's going to oversee the entire project limits. And that is, we want to have this contract as early as possible. So we're working on the scope and all the stuff that we need to work behind the scenes. And our plan is to advertise this after our industry forum later in March of this year. That is all I have today, so I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you so much. And thank you for meeting with me. I have that, stretch there around Sand Lake and Darrell Carter Parkway. I actually had a question about this slide that showed the cross section of the kind of differences. Yes, Osceola and Orange County. So where it says managed lane, I know that currently or in the presentation was talked about as being specifically for express toll. But is there any chance that there's a plan for or motivation for something that would be dedicated for mass transit? Something that would be better, not train, but maybe some kind of a busing system, especially as we move into downtown Orlando or some of the high density areas around the resorts?
So we're kind of extending the typical section from I for Ultimate. So the PD&E for this project was approved back in 2017. And since then, we've been trying to move forward to the next phase, which is the design, the right of way and construction. And we've been doing a lot of value engineering. What can we do? What tools are available to us today that were not available to us back in 2017? So we did look at what type of managed lane will help us manage the congestion the most successful way. And express lanes in this area we will definitely see the realization for in terms of congestion relief. The express lanes in I for Ultimate, I believe the buses don't pay tolls. And we will follow the same on this extension of the I-4.
Any other comments, Commissioner? No. Any other comments? Is there direction or motion from the board?
So moved.
Second, Janer.
Mr. Chairman, we need to hear from Taylor first on the amendments.
Oh, thank you.
Thought she said she was complete.
Good morning. I can jump right into it. So I'm Taylor and I'll be presenting on the proposed revisions to the 2045 MTP. So as Ms. Chacon just explained, these are the Moving Florida Forward projects, and we'll be incorporating them directly into the 2045 document for planning consistency across the region. With the addition of these three projects, there are no impacts to existing project cost feasibility because these are new funds being incorporated into the plan. So now, Mr. Chairman, unless there are any final questions for Mr.
Any
Chacon.
additional comments or questions? Can we restate the motion, please?
So moved. You read.
Second, Janer.
Roll call vote, please.
Arrington. Bates.
Yes.
Scott for Bonilla.
Aye.
Castano.
Aye.
Constantine. Gomez Cordero.
Aye.
Delari.
Aye.
Demmings.
Aye.
Dyer.
Yes.
Smith for Dallas. Good. Janer.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Smith. Ortiz.
Yes.
Uribe. Wilson.
Aye.
Woodruff.
Aye.
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, approving the amendment to the fiscal year 2024-2028 TIP.
Good morning, Vice Chair and board members. My name is Jason Sartorio. This morning, I have two TIP amendments for you. Additional information regarding the amendments is looking in tab 3 of your agendas. The two amendments come as a result of the Moving Florida Forward initiative, which FDOT just presented on. The two amendments advance design, right-of-way, and design build funding to achieve consistency with the FDOT 5-year work program. As I mentioned earlier, you have some additional information regarding the amendments located in tab 3 of your agendas. With that being said, unless there are any questions, we are asking for your motion of approval. Thank you.
Comments or questions from the board?
So moved. You read.
Second, Scott.
Okay.
Arrington.
Aye.
Bates.
Yes.
Scott for Bonilla.
Aye.
Castano.
Aye.
Constantine.
Yes.
Gomez Cordero.
Aye.
Delari.
Aye.
Demmings.
Aye.
Dyer.
Yes.
Smith for Dallas.
Yes.
Good. Janer.
Yes.
Moore.
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Ortiz.
Yes.
Uribe. Wilson.
Aye.
Woodruff.
Aye.
The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. And then move to item number C, which is the approval of the adjustment of the urban area boundaries.
Good morning, board members. This is an item that we spoke about at your last board meeting, but today we are asking for your approval of the 2020 adjusted census urban area boundary. As I mentioned before, I hadn't mentioned this, but in tab 4 of your printed agendas, you will see memorandum changes and more background information specific to this topic. We talked at your last meeting with our advisory committees as well about steps 1 through 4. We are at that action step today where we heard a lot of good feedback and we're able to incorporate that feedback directly from your local agency staffs. And we are asking for your approval today. Before I ask for that, I did want to call to your attention, the designation of the census urban area boundary does not change your local agency land planning authority. This action is specific to federal funding eligibility for Title 23 transportation funds, as well as federal emergency management, FEMA related funds. Also, the land area that we brought in and populations associated in those areas don't add any additional revenues. This is again specific to transportation infrastructure eligibility. So if you do not have any questions, we are requesting your approval of the adjusted urban area boundary as presented today.
Questions or comments from the board? Direction or motion from the board? Okay, this is not a roll call vote, so call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign? Motion passes unanimously. I'm now moving to item number D, which is the approval of the federal performance safety target. Alex?
Sure. The more supplemental information relating to this action item is in tab 5 of your printed agendas. But this is an item that we take up every year at your February board meeting through our January-February cycle, as it is a requirement of federal and state law. So today we are asking for your approval of the federal performance measures specific to safety. A very little bit of background here. This performance measure first started out in MAP 21. That's 2 federal reauthorization bills ago. It was continued in the FAST Act, recontinued and further emphasized as part of the current bipartisan infrastructure law. And I think what's most important as it relates to this action item is our board, the MetroPlan Orlando board, has supported the statewide targets of 0 for all safety performance measures since the final rule was in place in 2018. There are 6 federal performance measures specific to safety as shown on this slide. As you've heard from prior presentations under the Vision Zero umbrella, as we look at the state of the system, the safety, we're trending in the wrong direction, specifically as it relates to fatalities. We have seen minor, slight improvements as it relates to serious injuries and serious injuries relating to our most vulnerable. But as we look at fatalities, again, in our region, we're not trending in the right direction. So it further emphasizes our safety planning and Vision Zero work, which we'll be hearing more about later in the presentation and at future board meetings. But again, today we are requesting your approval of the state or supporting FDOT statewide performance measures for the federal performance measure requirements with a target of 0. And with that, I'll answer any questions you may have. But
Question or comments from the board? Yes, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair. Real quick, Alex, looking at our fatalities, is there any correlation between design elements or is it more operator error? Obviously, since the uptick since COVID.
We've since COVID, or really the past few years, we have seen increases in speeding, other what could be classified as careless or reckless driving, road, kind of rage of sorts. So there are behavioral
aspects that are going to this. So there's obviously improvements in design, a lot in play, but as it relates to what we're seeing in some of our other works, our speed management study, our region has a serious excessive speeding issue.
Thank you, sir.
Any other comments, direction or motion?
Our region has a speeding problem. Maybe not more than, I can't compare it to other metropolitan areas, but specific to what we're seeing, the types of crashes on the types of facilities, they're speed oriented.
As a follow-up to that, is there some correlation with the speed limits? Because I know that I've read a study saying that our region has a higher average speed limit.
I'm gonna, if I can, we have a presentation later on in today's agenda on Vision Zero, and we have Mike Wilson coming up, our in-house safety expert, and I'll make sure he responds to that
I do
specifically.
not mind a well-timed punt.
Any other comments? Seeing none, motion or direction? from the board?
Motion to approve, Janer.
Second, Scott.
Okay, this is a non-roll call vote. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose like sign, motion passes. We'll now move on to other businesses. We have a Vision Zero Safety Action Plan update. Now for the punt.
Thank you again, Vice Chair Delarry, and good morning, everyone. Brief update on our efforts for Vision Zero. First, I want to talk about our engineering countermeasures toolkit. We've completed that. This is a really big fat guide, over 120 countermeasures just on the built environment, looking at things like, signals and striping, bikeways and walkways, what we do specifically with intersections and roadway designs. Speed management is a very important component. And then there's other, miscellaneous strategies that we address. We put this together to help all the local governments sort of to compile all of the countermeasures that we're aware of into one spot, and then to help them, whittle down to the ones that are going to be relevant for the particular corridors and intersections that they're going to be working on. We pull from some national sources, the Crash Modification Factors Clearinghouse, the National NCHRP, which does a broad variety of transportation analysis work, and then Bicycle and Pedestrian Information Center. These are applying to all different types of roadways, so we break them out by whether they're more suited to a dense urban or suburban or rural context. We also break them out by their relative cost, whether they're just a quick little thing that can be deployed cheaply in-house, or something big that's going to require right-of-way and many years of development, and similar with a time frame. And this is just one example. So the book is full of these cards, if you will, of countermeasures with what the countermeasure is, what it does, what it applies to from which modes. Again, how long it takes and how costly it is to implement, what types of crashes it applies to, what portion of our safe system strategy it applies to. And then there are some other additional considerations. This is not a comprehensive picture of the crash modification factor. There's more detail that we reference in the guide. So as you see the FDOT reference up at the upper right. So we're just giving the locals all the reference points they need to quickly get to the information that's going to help them choose the right countermeasures for their safety problems. Now, we're also working on the non-infrastructure side of things, which is looking at how do we improve behavior, how do we improve our data collection process, how do we maintain our roads at a better level to address safety, and of course, post-crash care, one of the key components of the Vision Zero process. How do we get people to the crash scene faster, and then get the patients to the hospital faster as well? And then looking at things like automated enforcement and vehicle maintenance. So again, not infrastructure, but things that we know can have an impact on reducing crashes and improving behavior. We've also been working on our public engagement, a little update on that. Sorry, the slide was not updated on there, but you can see for November, December, we had 5 events with over 300 participants. For January, we have had about another 5 events with about roughly 200 participants. You all were here last meeting for the media briefing, which went very well. We had journalists from 5 English language and 1 Spanish language outlet. We had got over 25 minutes of airtime as a result of that event. And we got additional inquiries from both print and broadcast journalists. So we really made an impact on that day and getting the word out on what we're doing. We have, as I showed last time, the public input component of our hub site, where the public can identify problem areas that they see, whether they're seeing certain behaviors or certain aspects of the built environment that they'd like to see improvements on. And we've actually got close to 200 contributions now from the general public on that. And then we also included, as noted before, over 100 comments that we got from our active transportation plan that were specifically safety related. Our public outreach staff has recently completed a Vision Zero Kids book. So this is, I believe, going to press right now. It's also available online. So a way to get to the younger kids with the types of safety messages that are relevant and resonant with them. You all recall the safety workshop on the 31st, and as noted, we had over 120 participants at that, and some very good feedback and ideas on how to advance the Vision Zero effort. And I would also like to mention that you have at your site the new elected officials guide. So this is geared specifically for elected officials to help you all understand what you can do to communicate to your constituents and to your staff, how to best implement Vision Zero, whether it's what your staff is doing on a day-to-day basis, or what your public is doing from a behavioral standpoint. So you can see the QR code on there, so you can get the document there. And then once again, our next steps, this is the same schedule you've seen before. We're in the process of developing the prioritization process and identifying the priority corridors. And this is happening both at the regional level and at all of your local Vision Zero planning effort as well. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to.
Questions from the board?
I guess I can
Commissioner,
start
would you like to ask a question?
with the one that's already on the floor.
You were here for it. So yeah, I mean, I always try to, kind of come at this with a look at sort of the other things we've learned over the time about our differences.
Right. So yes, so about speed, I mean, I don't have any, I've never seen anything that definitively says, that we have higher speeds. That's just a sense that I get from traveling around and being a transportation planner with a safety focus and et cetera. That's what the sense that I get. And I would say that it's not necessarily responsible for our increase in crashes or in fatalities in recent years, because we've actually seen a decrease in serious injury crashes. So we're doing a better job at reducing severe crashes and crashes overall. Where we're failing is when it comes to fatalities. One thing I would like to bring up in that, and where we're seeing the biggest increase in fatalities, is among pedestrians. And over the past 10 years, a really major change has happened in the types of vehicles on our roads. Passenger sedans have dropped precipitously, and they've been replaced by the compact SUV type of vehicle. And so we're going from a front end that's down around knee level or just above to one that's up to around your hips or higher. And the same goes, and with pickup trucks, even though there are not more sales of them, the trucks have gotten bigger. And so what would have been a lower body impact to legs or hips is becoming an internal organs impact. And instead of rolling onto the vehicle, someone is getting, slammed down. So that's the only thing to me that can explain the increase in a very, very significant increase in pedestrian fatalities over the years.
Well, as a follow-up to that, though, I mean, and I had the opportunity, and thank you so much in my district, of having a Vision Zero community meeting where one of the demonstrations that the team brought was an exercise where they had a box that you could use to show how each 10 mile per hour increments above a certain speed, how little you can take in your surroundings. So I know it's hard to extrapolate the causality in all of these, but it was a very good demonstration in understanding that speed definitely alters the driver's perception of the pedestrian there, and whether, what other factors may come into play. So anyway, thank you so much for the information and continuing this work.
All right, this is my last at bat today, so I'll keep it brief, stay on trend. This is a information item, a very brief preview, more of a heads up of what's to come over the next your next few board meetings. But every other year, this time of year, we come forward updating and asking for your approval, but not today, of our Unified Planning Work Program, which is really federal code for a metropolitan planning organization's internal operating budget. So that's what it's called, but at the true heart of the item, it is an operating budget. And at that, based on federal and state statute, it has to be a 2-year budget. So the next 2 years will be fiscal 25 and fiscal 26, beginning July 1st of this year. Like any budget, this is a performance-based budget, identifies both revenues and tasks. We also have to, based on state guidance, structure the document in a certain way and identify certain elements of work, the type of work, milestones of the work, who's going to perform the work, so we can implement that. And that as that last bullet identifies, this is a requirement for us to pass through any federal highway planning or FTA planning funds, which go directly to links. Important notes on this schedule. I know many of you are familiar through this process. But every even year, here we are at your March board meeting, you will be taking action on a draft or the budget for submittal to FDOT. Following your approval of that, we transmit that to FDOT. It's reviewed, and then they provide any comments, corrections as needed. And then that document is formally and finally approved at your May 8th meeting in time for the statutory requirement of that document must be submitted in its final format to DOT by May 15th. So the timing and scheduling of our board meeting allows us to satisfy that requirement there. But you'll be hearing much more about this at your next meeting, and also with a tangible budget item for your review. The document really hasn't changed. I know in past presentations, we had talked about consolidating, refining, streamlining the document. I think we've done that to the maximum extent feasible within the template that we're provided. But we do have the tasks remain constant, the allocation of work similar to years past, which allows us to satisfy all of our federal requirements for purposes of certification, as well as delivering all of our core products and requirements of those core products in a timely manner. So structure, core tasks of the document will not change. As it relates to the studies, the works in addition to what you see in front of you in the Transportation Improvement Program, over 50% of our budget goes to consultant and vendor services. And these are the types of planning activities, tasks that we're going to be working on. We've started some of these items in this fiscal year. We're going to be finalizing them next year. And those are the regional TISMO strategic plan. That's some work Eric Hill has going on, which is looking at TISMO planning within our region, but also with our partners in District 5 and on the I-4 corridor. So it's looking at systems management operation on a super regional level. We also just kicked off the electric vehicle charging and readiness study. You're going to be hearing a lot more about that at your coming meetings. Eric will be coming in and presenting on that. We've talked a lot about Vision Zero action planning, but that's in our budget. We were a direct recipient for the Safe Roads and Streets for All grant. We're going to be expending the majority of those funds in current year as planned, as scheduled and from Mike's presentation, but we will be doing some demonstration and other projects next fiscal year. So that grant will remain open, consistent with the FHWA grant agreement. You heard, you'll be hearing a little bit more later on the agenda from Taylor about our 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So we had an amendment to the old plan, but it's that time of year that we're going to be updating and asking ourselves some of those long-range planning decisions again. So our 2050 MTP is going to be in full force over the next 18 to 24 months to deliver that product on time, as scheduled. We're also going to be continue our tradition of annual traffic signal retiming on the state highway system and the before and after studies. So we do that work in coordination with your staffs in the TSMO Advisory Committee. We're also going to continue our feasibility analysis for critical sidewalk gaps. Those are taking those PPL priorities and doing the necessary pre-design work so they can flow right into the work program without a hitch. We're also going to continue our corridor planning studies, ones like we have done on 10th Street and in Osceola, Corinne Drive, the Rock Springs Road, and West Orange Trail. We're going to be continuing that work going into the new fiscal year. We're also going to continue our big data purchase for travel time reliability, origin, destination data that supports a full range of our planning studies and also local requests that we help your traffic engineers with. We're also going to be kicking off next fiscal year a travel demand management study that's going to look at identifying the full range of traveler choices to maximize trip potential, shorten trips, but also with the end in mind of reducing congestion. And also our 2026 annual public opinion survey. So our survey research that you've heard a lot about. So that's budgeted in next fiscal year's budget. Revenues, this chart here shows our current year and then the next 2 years. You'll see in current year, we have a higher than typical revenue that's directly associated to the Safe Streets and All grant, over $5 million direct recipient. So you'll see a spike there. We also had a couple other federal grants, Vector and some other grants that Eric Hill and his team managed, part of our TSMO program. Those grants are waning off. So we're going to see less of those funds going into fiscal 25 and fiscal 26. And those values that you see there, 8 to 9 million, are pretty consistent with years past, our planning budget, consistent with those federal formula funds. As I mentioned earlier, our budget also enables the pass-through of funds to links for planning activities, both as part of the consolidated planning grant, that's us passing through federal highway funds to links to support their planning and their strategic planning activities. We're also pass through funds to support the Access Links administration of the Access Links program for transportation disadvantaged. And not directly in our UPWP, but it's also important to note, we do pass through $7 million a year of our transportation management area, our SU funds, urban attributable funds, for links to support their transit asset management program. So they're buying eligible capital expenses, rolling, new buses, and other eligible capital expenses with those funds. So again, at your next board meeting, you're going to have a tangible docket in front of you. We'll have that sent out in advance of the meeting. But if you have any questions at this time or ideas.
Alex, thank you for the preview. Any questions from the board? Thank you. This time, move on to the next presentation, which would be the preview of the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan.
Good morning. I'm back again. This time to talk about the 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and what we're going to be getting started with right now. So for those of us who are new to the board, just a quick reminder that of our 3 core planning products, the MTP serves as the foundation for how our projects are federally funded throughout the region. MTP serves as our long-term vision and identifies our needs and prioritizes those project solutions to address the needs. Those top priority projects are then shortlisted on our prioritized project list. And from there, as funding becomes available and projects are ready to move forward, they're programmed on our transportation improvement program. So again, that MTP is the key for future federal funding eligibility. So as Alex mentioned, this is a cyclical process. We're coming back to update the 2050 plan. This is an update that happens every 5 years, and the MTP must cover a minimum of a 20-year planning horizon. It must also be fiscally constrained and include data-driven performance-based planning. There are several other planning emphasis areas that we need to include. The MTP is intentionally both multimodal and multifaceted, as these planning areas across the region will shape the future of our transportation system. Of our tasks and activities, we're going to begin with our goals and objectives and an evaluation of how we use our existing transportation system, and then identifying future trends that will impact how we grow and evolve through 2050. We'll then perform a needs assessment, mentioning all those different planning emphasis areas on the prior slides, to develop a cost feasible plan of projects and strategies to be adopted by the board at the conclusion of this process. So this is the first of many updates you'll receive about the 2050 MTP. You'll be receiving additional information about this as we move through the entire process, as well as our advisory committees at each of these different meetings. We will also have technical workshops with a lot of your staff to be able to deep dive any specific topics that require a little more development to build consensus before it comes to the advisory committees and the board for decision-making purposes at those key milestones. We'll also be having interdisciplinary interviews with our other thought leaders and strategic partners throughout the region to bring in these multiple perspectives to enhance the quality of the plan, as well as having several public engagement events, which you'll learn more about as they become scheduled. So in your agenda packets under tab 8, you'll see a status report of the work that is in progress. This will always be a general information item in your agendas moving forward. This will include summaries of the work that's underway, the project schedule, and any upcoming events as they're scheduled. And as we've mentioned, we're just now getting started, so there will be a lot of work to come. And at the end of this process in December 2025, that's when the 2050 MTP will come to you for a recommendation for approval. But as we kind of dive into the technical elements, or before we do so, I would ask that everyone reflect on the following questions. How do we want to continue growing through 2050? What do we want our transportation system to look like? How will we fund that shared regional vision? And what steps must be taken to achieve that vision? Because the answers to these 4 questions will ultimately shape the development and outcomes of the 2050 MTP. Thank you for your time this morning, and I am available to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Questions from the board for this preview? Seeing none, thank you. This time we'll move on to the 2024 legislative update. Ms. Virginia.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair and board members. It's week 6 in the legislative session. 23 days are remaining, and it's been a busy session so far. More than 50 transportation-related projects or bills have been filed. In your agenda books at tab 9, you will find a copy of last week's report that was provided to us by Gray Robinson, who's our team on the ground in Tallahassee. We have been closely monitoring several bills, and in the time that I have with you this morning, I want to call attention to several that have an impact on us, our region, and our work. The most time that we have spent, Gary mentioned to you, and as did Commissioner Uribe in her opening comments in her report this morning about the significance of an impending bill, House Bill 7049. House sponsor is Rep. McFarland, and Senate companion, Senate Bill 1032 by Senator Gruters. This bill revises the membership of the Center for Urban Transportation Research Advisory Board. It also proposes to make some technical changes to the members of the Implementing Solutions for Transportation Research and Evaluating Emerging Technologies. This is the Living Lab at UF, known as iStreet. The bill proposes a moratorium on new metropolitan planning organizations that are adjacent to existing MPOs. And to Commissioner Uribe's point that she made earlier, it repeals the Metropolitan Planning Organization Advisory Council, or the MPOAC. It also requires the Department of Transportation to convene MPOs of a similar size for the purpose of exchanging ideas and best practices. And the proposal comes from, if there's a repeal of the MPOAC, some of the good parts of MPOAC could be met by use of DOT convening these similar size MPOs. Where the real rub comes for us and the real concern comes for us is the creation of a new MPO accountability and transparency provision that will be included in law that requires the Department of Transportation to review each of the MPO's long-range transportation plans. And if those are found to be not up to par, then DOT will be able to send those back to the respective MPOs for modification. It requires DOT to create some quality performance matrices and to evaluate each beginning in December of 2025. It requires the MPOs to annually report its score of those quality performance metrics and then publish those scores on its website. And finally, it requires that DOT would validate those calculations and to adjust as needed. Another area of concern is that for those MPOs that are deemed by DOT to be poor performing, there is a provision that the Department of Transportation, the secretary, would appoint a CEO or an executive director to that MPO, and that executive director would also serve as the chair of that MPO. And so these are areas that we are working through, including an inclusion of a provision that is kind of the carrot and the stick of $5 million from the State Transportation Trust Fund for the highest performing MPO. And so the good news about all of this is that the sponsor has been receptive and open to hearing from and working with metropolitan planning organizations around the state. In fact, whenever she has presented these in front of committee, she has encouraged those committee members to talk to their MPOs and have their MPOs to call her. We are aware of a impending amendment that could potentially come out. We're expecting it anytime this week. This bill has been heard in front of two of its 3 committees of reference. The next is scheduled for tomorrow. It is not on that agenda, but there is one more meeting on the 22nd, and we expect that there would be an amendment. We have spoken with not only the representative, but we have spoken with our Central Florida Legislative Delegation. We've let them know of our concerns, particularly where proposals like the DOT appointing an executive director and that person, DOT secretary, sitting on a metropolitan planning organization as chair would be inconsistent, in our opinion, with federal law. And it would also create a sunshine law issue with the DOT secretary not being able to speak with each of the members that are seated on that board along with them. So we have been in contact and have briefed Representatives Smith, Escamani, Lopez, Arrington, Senator Thompson, and Senator Torres. We are looking for meetings with other members of our legislative delegation to also let them know that, you know, what our positions are and how they are able to help. We ask you to do the same as you are in contact with your colleagues in Tallahassee to let them know how this would impact your metropolitan planning organization. And I can say that Rep. McFarland has used MetroPlan Orlando as a model when she has spoken and presented this. She has held us up in terms of our regional cooperation and how well we work. And so we feel that she is listening to us between the first iteration and the sneak preview of the amendment. She has allowed us to take a look at that before it went to bill drafting. And so we hope that she will come back with some additional input from us. The next bill I'd like to call, should I pause for questions? Okay, all right. The next bill of interest is committee substitute for House Bill 1673, Transportation Services for Persons with Disabilities. This is out of the Transportation and Modals Subcommittee and sponsored by Rep. Busta Cabrera. And the Senate's companion is Senate Bill 1380 by Senator Hudson. These bills are identical and they have both passed all of their committees of reference and has been placed on special order calendar. The bill amends the membership of the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage, taking it from 7 members to 14 members. It also amends the commission's duties. It requires them to provide best practices and latest technology innovations to those disadvantaged program managers. It requires the transportation system that provides the paratransit services to include additional training for its drivers, install cameras on all of the vehicles, provide access to camera footage by specified persons, provide riding, booking, and tracking services, and establishes reasonable time periods between the time of request and the time of service. Much of this is what we hear as our members of the transportation disadvantaged community come and speak before the TDLCB. It is well intended. However, it does come with a cost because it costs money to outfit all of those vehicles with those cameras. And so it comes with the mandate, but it does not come with the money. And how well intended it is, it could create a real issue for us in our transit system. So again, that is on our radar, but it is moving quickly and it is likely going to pass. Senate committee substitute for House Bill 287, a transportation bill, and the Senate sponsor is Senate Bill 266. Among other things, this bill provides that the Department of Transportation may not annually commit more than 20% of revenue derived from state fuel taxes and motor vehicle license related fees cannot be deposited into the Transportation Trust Fund for public transit projects, capping it at no more than 20%. There are some exceptions, and those are the exceptions are projects that use revenues to match funds that may be available by the federal government. Another exception is projects that are included in the MPO's Transportation Improvement Program and are approved by a supermajority vote of the Board of County Commissioners where that project is located. It amends the statutory requirement also for vehicles that are equipped with teleoperations systems. It is now in its last committee stop tomorrow before the Infrastructure Strategies Committee. And again, this one is one that is moving pretty quickly and it is likely going to pass. This is 287 and Senate Bill 266, Senator Hooper. And lastly, one that you have likely seen or heard on the news is House Bill 317. Senate sponsor, Senate companion is 258. This is interstate safety bill that prohibits drivers from driving or maintaining their position in the furthermost left lane of certain roadways. There are exceptions to this. This bill has passed both committees and all committees and has been placed on special order calendar for tomorrow. It's been fast moving and it is likely going to be favorable as it has been, as it has come through each of the committees. Again, well intended, but if you can imagine what happens to our system with people moving over from where there's vehicles that are on the side of the road moving over and those who can't maintain speed in the innermost left, everybody trying to get in the middle, causing congestion. So it may end up with another problem, unintended consequence. So we have those several that we are watching. Session will end by the time you meet again. So we will continue to provide those preliminary session reports to you. We're in constant contact with Ryan, Angela, and Katie up in Tallahassee, and we are continuing to knock on doors and speak into every ear who will listen. So, Mr. Vice Chair, that is my report this morning. Happy to answer any questions, and Gary's also here. He's
I'm
been
sure we have a lot of questions.
a
First,
party
we'll
to
go
it.
we'll go
Sure.
Mr. Commissioner Reby.
Virginia, thank you for the update. I did want to just let everyone know on the Senate bill about the MPOs. The MPOAC did meet with Representative McFarland to try to help educate and clarify any type of information. There is an issue of it actually being legal to be done, but for you guys to know, some of that performance requirement would be, do we have traffic congestion? And if we do, we would fail. And I don't know about you guys, but there pretty much isn't anywhere in the state of Florida that there isn't some type of traffic congestion. And I know that Miami-Dade, the MPO has been working very hard on the public transit. They've actually been meeting with the Senate and trying to get some language on there because that would really hinder us tremendously on that. So just, the one good thing is that we don't work in silo. We really work with all the MPOs. And this is why it's so important statewide, because we get updates on this on basically almost on a daily basis because we're so worried about how things are changing. But I just wanted to kind of let people know how complicated and extreme some of these bills are. And to anybody on this board who has influence or friends that maybe aren't even in our area, but are in the Senate or legislature, that can help us. We need that. We need that now. So just wanted to give the MPOAC background because we actually have an executive board on what we're going to present, you know, as an umbrella regarding that one Senate bill about the MPOs. Thank you. And actually,
We would like to know. What we have learned is that the House sponsor is carrying this as the House Speaker's priority.
Okay.
So there's something that
There's something
we
we
don't
don't
know
know
about.
about.
We have characterized this as that dragnet. There's someone that is in target, and we're all getting drug into it. But again, we have been able to at least get FaceTime with her. And so
It's wild.
yeah. And we do have a set of concerns that we have shared with our legislative delegation members. So if any of you are interested, and we can make those available to you as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure. Yes, sir.
You know that everyone has all.
So Virginia, you may not know this, but I'm gonna ask you. Has she ever served on an MPO?
I do not know the answer to that.
I don't think Speaker Renner has ever served on an MPO. So I just sounds like they just heard something from somebody and now they want to write a little bill.
So we.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have an MPO in Jackson. MPO in Jackson. This could be short circuit that question.
We tried that. We tried that with Representative Farley.
And we've done as much as we can to ensure that when we are speaking with her and with other members of the delegation, that we are also educating. Because with regard to the MPOAC, one of the concerns was, we give them so much money and, to do what they do. And to Gary's point, the funding for the MPOAC comes off of the top of federal funds that are coming for the metropolitan planning organizations. So to be able to help give those types of nuggets of information and education, we've tried as well.
Yeah, I'm concerned about all those bills that you mentioned. Transportation disadvantage, it really is a huge unfunded mandate. It's already a super huge expense. It's very important to keep these people safe, but I mean, I don't know, have we tried to educate in terms of the cost involved with the implementation of that bill and, you know, how it may hinder maybe some people's access to the system?
We have not particularly on that bill. I was reviewing the bill analysis, the staff analysis for that bill, and I don't think that they have even taken the step to get there because it does say at the bottom, indeterminable amount of impact, fiscal
Right.
impact. So it has not, I think it's gonna be one of those, throw it to you and just
Because you know, that's
make it
been a
work.
passion of mine, and so I get concerned, you know, if any of our transportation disadvantage population might be impacted. The other thing is that Senate bill, I think you said it was 266, where it limits the amount of SU funds that we give to public transportation. I mean, I think everybody should be concerned, especially with us having to take over Sunrail pretty soon. I mean, I kind of want to ask what Commissioner Wilson asked. What's the impetus of that? I mean, why? And public transportation reduces our traffic congestion. You would think that they would want us to continue those steps, especially with saying we would fail if our roads are congested, which is a little bit ironic because I think FDOT told us, what was it, is it managed congestion or something like that? So they're recognizing that we're always going to have times of traffic and congestion. And so now they're saying if we have traffic and congestion, then we fail. So I think all this stuff is very convoluted, and I think that they're not grasping or understanding. So I think we all have to be concerned, especially this gas tax not being able to be used for public transportation for a maximum of 20%. I mean, have we spoken to representatives on that one and senators and
We have
trying
not, the majority of our focus has
That's
been
been the
on the
MPO one,
MPO.
which I
But we-
understand, but I think this is, I mean, this is very important, for our region.
And I do believe, Commissioner, that our colleagues over at Lynx are, they have their foot on the pedal with that one. I last spoke with Tiffany last week, and she did say that this is of utmost importance to them.
Well, we
So-
have a Lynx committee next week, so I'll make sure that, we bring that up and see, if, you know, what the conversations have looked like. Because that, again, it's very important for our entire region.
And similar to what Commissioner Uribe said about, you know, the MPOs working together around the state, we're working with Broward, we're working with Miami-Dade, we work with Jacksonville and their lobbyists, and we're all rowing in the same direction. It's the same with those transportation operating agencies as well. So, sure, thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, my pleasure.
Move on to public comments, 2 ways to address the board, virtually and in person. Do we have anyone that's raised their hands?
Mr. Vice Chair, we have no hands raised online.
Okay, thank you. Have we had anybody filled out any cards, Miss Smith?
Yes, Miss Joanne Canellis.
Joanne? Is she here? I know she stepped out for a moment. Can we? She's been waiting very patiently. I just want to make sure we address her. Okay. Appreciate you all's patience. Take your time. Okay. Can you give us your name and address?
Joanne Canales, and 324 Claremont Avenue, Lake Mary, Florida, 32746. Yes, we'd like to have this nice mass transit. Really bad, so we don't have to walk so much as we do now. And that's like 24 hours, 7 days, transportation. and bus and train service, including holidays, weekends, and nighttime, so that no one would be stranded like this ever again. And we need to have the bus up there over at the Run Town Street in Lake Mary, Florida. That's in Lake Mary Prep School. And we need the bus down there at the I call it the Estella Road in Lake Mary, Florida as well. That's by the park. And we need the bus over there at the Oviedo Boulevard where the swimming pool is in the Big Kahuna. You know how it is when we go swimming in it every winter. I mean, every summer, every Saturday, so that I don't have to worry about being, stranded like that either. Because one time I did walk from that swimming pool to the Oviedo Mall and nearly got sick to my stomach on that once. And I knew better than that since. Thank you very much. Members, towards mass transit, please. Thank you for
thank-
everywhere. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joanne.
Welcome.
Any other comments we have?
No, sir.
Okay. This time we'll go to general board comments. Any general board comments that we have? Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, DOT had talked about their truck sites for parking. Are we looking at any air quality opportunities for capture? Obviously, those are diesel trucks that'll probably be running for hours on end, keeping the cab cool. Is there any opportunities for anything like that? Because obviously it'll create kind of an air quality issue at those specific sites. I just didn't know. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, our next board meeting will be on March 13th in the same location. This meeting is now adjourned.